I don't know if it's going to be useful for you. Should I show this one? Like when to do which surgery? Is it important? Is it good for you? Or it become too much information? Let me know. Do you get asked these questions? Young woman, is it too much for you, this whole thing?
No, ma'am, you can continue with this.
Yeah, basically. So this is very clear, right? Primary SUI with urethral hypermobility, young patient, I would do TVT. Why? Because TVT has higher objective cure in the 8-year post-op, right? Younger woman has got hypermobility and primary SUI. I will do TVT. Why? Because I want long-term success rate. And also TVT may cause less sexual pain than TOT because TOT tends to lie like this and there are bands going, like in many times now when you examine patient with TOT na, you can actually feel the bands going like laterally. If it's fibrous, I can pull, right? So you can actually feel vagina mein na, like if you feel beneath the midurethra na, you can feel the bands going like that and it can hurt during sexual activity. So TVT does not cause that, right? So younger women TVT. Primary SUI with hypermobility in older patient and leak point pressure more than 60 centimeter water. That means I'm looking at a patient with ISD. So again, I'm taking a urodynamics lecture right now. When I take a urodynamics lecture right now, I will, in ISD, you have leak point pressure less than 60 centimeter water. In pure hypermobility, you will have leak point pressure above 60 centimeter water. What is leak point pressure? I'll tell you in the next lecture. Correct? So any woman, older woman with hypermobility without ISD, I would do TOT. Okay? Older woman, no ISD, and primary SUI with hypermobility, I would do TOT because similar effectiveness, she's older, doesn't matter how many years, right? And fewer complications. I told you TOT does not, TOT is less tight, no. So you want in older women less tight, okay? When they don't have ISD. Is it easy to understand? No ISD, older woman, I would do TOT. Younger women, no ISD, I would do TVT, okay? Recurrent SUI with hypermobility, any age. Even if they don't have ISD, I will do TVT. Okay? So, recurrent SUI, I would do TVT. Even if they don't have ISD. Because they have clearly said that ITVT has higher cure rate for recurrent SUI. Right? If you have primary SUI with ISD, primary SUI meaning no recurrent SUI. So primary SUI with ISD meaning leak point pressure less than 60 centimeter water, I would do TVT or pubovaginal sling. Okay? Understood?
Yes.
TVT has high success rate according to literature. Now, if they don't have hypermobility, okay, if they have hypermobility, I would do TVT more often. But if they don't have hypermobility and they have ISD, I would do pubovaginal sling. Understood? ISD patients with no hypermobility, I would do pubovaginal sling. Why? Because I want to cause a little bit of obstruction at the bladder neck. Did you all understand this much?
Yes, ma'am, but there are questions.
Yes, I'll.
In TOT or TVT, how do we know that how much tight or tension we have to keep on urethra if there is a part of prolapse anterior vagina?
Yeah. When I do the surgery, ये question लिखो, and when I'm teaching you on uh, surgeries now, I will show you that. Okay, there's nothing like there's no part of prolapse antevaginal wall. When you're putting in a TVT and TOT, you're pushing it back. Okay, you're tensioning on a straight urethra. You don't have the bladder coming there. You don't have antevaginal wall prolapsing there. Okay, you will put in knife vagina. You will first put in the TVT, TOT, and when you do it, there's no bladder muscle, antevaginal wall coming there because you're straightening it up before you operate. Okay. टेंशनिंग कितना करना है वो मैं बाद में बताऊंगी सर्जरी करने के टाइम पे. Okay. Before any SOS surgery, is it better to check leak point pressure in all patients? Yes, I'm going to teach you that in urodynamics lecture. Okay. Next, how to find urethral hypermobility? I don't think you attended the lecture last time. Did you attend my lecture last time? Kevin George? Urethral hypermobility के लिए Q-tip test है. Okay. The good test is Q-tip test. what do you do is, okay, Kevin George, can you give my recording to him? Because last time I took QT test 2 3 times.
Yes, yes, ma'am. We can give the recording to them.
Okay. So Kevin, we will give the recording to you and you can listen to the lecture. If you still have a problem, you can always email me. Is that okay, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Kevin said no. It's not okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay. 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 Dr. Kiran Durve, a glass associated procedure operated anticolporography along with vaginal hysterectomy done after a few days. She came with completed urinary incontinence. Why does it happen? Very, 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 very important. This is a case of occult incontinence. So what he is saying is this: you have a patient of procedentia and large cystocele. Okay, you did hysterectomy and you did AP repair, correct? But then she comes with urinary incontinence afterwards. That's because you missed it beforehand. Okay, now when I teach you prolapse, we talk about occult incontinence. Now, when you have prolapse, what the prolapse, especially when you have cystocele, what happens is that when you, one second, I've seen the question. Okay, when you have prolapse, what is happening is that the urethra gets kinked, especially when you have cystocele. The prolapse will cause kinking of the urethra. So, a patient with prolapse, because the urethra is kinked, even if the leaking is present, it may not be manifest. Okay, the patient may be having SUI, but because the prolapse is coming and imagine now this is the bladder, and this is the urethra. Now when I've got prolapse, it's getting kinked here. तो SUI है तो भी दिखेगा नहीं prior to surgery. So when you assess a patient of prolapse, and I'm going to talk about that when I do evaluation of prolapse, it's very important to push the bladder back, straighten the urethrovesical angle, and then do cough stress test. When I ask the patient to cough on full bladder, very important to push the bladder back and straighten the urethrovesical angle and then make the patient cough. Okay, then you will pick up, it's called as occult incontinence. The term is occult incontinence, meaning incontinence was always present, but it's occult, masked. Why? Because the prolapse is kinking the urethra. And then you do operation, everything is straightened up, and then she comes back leaking later on. It's not that the leaking came after surgery. The leaking was there before surgery, you didn't pick it up. Okay? Okay, Neha is asking. I think I've answered this question, Neha. Is QT done routinely? What about translabial scan? I told you during the last lecture that Q-tip is not done routinely. It's not a part of the ICI guidelines. Q-tip for me is very important in recurrent SUI. Okay, because I want to pick up its immobile urethra. Because if urethra is immobile, my TVT, TOT won't work as well. I would have to put a pubovaginal, a little obstructive sling. Okay. Dr. Ganesh, you were not there last time. Biofeedback lecture mere. Dr. Ganesh, he's asked me to teach biofeedback therapy and pelvic physiotherapy. I taught it last time.
Yes, ma'am.
So you were not there last time, na? So you give him the lecture.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
I can always take the first lecture again. If some people, there's a lot of people who have not missed the first lecture and want to have that, I can take it again. But as far as possible, try to come for my lectures. It's very hard to take it again.
To provide recording.
Yeah, we'll provide you the recording. I took a whole lecture. I do hardcore biofeedback. It's a very big part of my therapy. Every patient of SUI and urgency incontinence undergoes biofeedback in my. So more new lectures only I'll take, Ray. People who have not attended, maybe they can attend another lecture, but you can give a recording, na? My recording is good enough, right? Yeah. Can you keep the recording only for students?
Yes, ma'am. We are keeping it for the students only.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later on, right?
Yes, yes.
I don't want the lectures to be there for open consumption, only for students.
No, it is
okay. Okay. So now shall I go ahead?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. When a woman has recurrent SUI with urethral hypermobility, I can do either TVT or pubovaginal sling, but I'll prefer a TVT. When you have recurrent SUI with hypermobility and they have ISD, many patients can have both. I told you earlier, no, last time's lecture, that patients can have, ये कैसा आ गया ये? Can you see the circle like that?
Yes, ma'am. Someone has done that. I'll clear that.
Okay, okay. Okay. So basically what happens is, I told you that most patients will have both. They will have hypermobility also and they will have a little ISD also, correct? Like most patients will have one of the two. So when they have recurrent SUI with uterine hypermobility and recon pressure less than 60 centimeter water, then I would do either TVT or pubovaginal sling. But if patient have recurrent SUI and non-mobile bladder neck, any leak point pressure, then I would do bulking agent or pubovaginal sling. Understood? If it's a non-mobile bladder neck, TVT, TOT don't work. You have to do either bulking agent or pubovaginal sling. Is it clear with you all? Non-mobile urethra, recurrent SUI, I will do either pubovaginal sling or bulking agent. I won't do TVT or TOT. Now, if a woman has SUI, but she got mixed incontinence and she's got either voiding dysfunction, dominant urgency, like, sometimes you have mixed incontinence where the urgency is dominant, See, when you have mixed incontinence where the SUI is dominant, then TVT works better. But we have mixed incontinence where the dominant feature is urgency, then TOT is good. Understood? If they're in the mixed incontinence components, the urgency bit is very high and the SUI bit is smaller, then I would do TOT more. Okay. Also similarly, if a woman has voiding dysfunction, a lot of our prolapse patients have voiding dysfunction. Remember that. Why do they have voiding dysfunction, prolapse patients? Because when they have cystocele, the urethra is kinked. So they have to really push to be able to pee. Understood? So such patients, they have dysfunctional voiding. They have learned this very bad habit of straining to pee. In those patients also, I will do TOT more because TVT can cause more obstruction. TOT does not cause that much obstruction. So anybody who's got a mixed incontinence, where urgency component is very high, the SUI component is less, or they have got voiding dysfunction, I would do TOT. Lastly, SUI with prolapse, I would do either TVT or TOT. Occult SUI, I'll take next time. Okay, occult bit, I will tell you. Occult SUI, I told you, is prolapse mein incontinence pehle se hona, becoming manifest after surgery. It's called occult SUI. I will take it during prolapse lecture. Okay. If you've got recurrent SUI and there is previous synthetic sling mesh complication, correct? A lot of the slings will have the mesh erosion complication, right? When they have that, then I will not put a mesh again. I will do a pubovaginal fascial sling or a Birch Colpo suspension. Because if you've got a mesh erosion once, you don't want to put another mesh, right? You will go and do a fascial sling or a Birch Colpo suspension. Okay? Got it? Any questions till now? And those of you who missed the first lecture, please listen to the first lecture before you come for the next lecture. I mean, Dr. Meena, give it to them.
Yes, sure.
I'm feeling very bad that a lot of people have come for today's lecture without listening to the previous lecture. So this lecture will be very hard for you. So I suggest that you go through my first and the second lecture all over again, because today's lecture will not make sense till you've understood the first lecture. No, you don't have to say sorry. I completely understand. You're all residents. So please listen to my first lecture and then listen to this lecture. Then it will make sense because in a sequence. Okay. So if a woman has got recurrent SUI with mesh complication of previous sling surgery, then you would do a pubovaginal fascial sling or Birch. Again, Priya Roshni is asking, when will you do Birch? I told you, na, birth only done for primary SUI. You don't do for ISD. So when will I do birth? I will do birth in a patient who's got primary SUI and she does not want a mesh. Or else I will do birth in a patient with recurrent SUI when she has had a previous mesh complication and she doesn't want to repeat mesh. That's when I will do a birth. Because if a woman is okay with mesh, TVT, it's always, studies show birth inferior to retropubic slings. So I will only put a birth in a primary patient, meaning first time surgery, if she does not want sling. Also, I will do recurrent cases of primary SUI where they had previous mesh complication. Remember one thing very, very clearly. I told it before last time's lecture. I'm going to tell it again. Birth should never be done in ISD because in ISD, bladder neck is open. It's got sphincter problem. The bladder neck is open. In that, if I do birth, what does birth do? It raises up the bladder neck to the abdomen. So you will keep the bladder neck permanently open. The woman will keep leaking. You will worsen the leaking in patients of ISD if you do birth. So birth should always be done only in patients with primary SU and hypermobility. However, there's enough evidence. No, you should go at the bladder neck, not go above. Some people do that, but it doesn't matter. You should take at the bladder neck and one below it. Okay. Take home messages. Physiotherapy, biofeedback is the first line therapy. In my practice, biofeedback works beautifully. I don't need anything else for more than 70% of patients. Prolapse patients with SUIs are a part of complicated incontinence group. And I'm going to cover that in the prolapse lecture. Always assess for occult incontinence when you have patients with prolapse. There is no one sling for all. Do they ask you tissue engineering for urinary incontinence? Do they actually have a exam going lecture on? Yeah, there is a. One second. Tissue engineering has not really worked as of now. There's no bulking agent. There's no stem cell as well. Yeah. One second. One second. Huh? Something came. I'm so sorry. One second. Huh? One patient has written something. I'm so sorry. Sorry, just one medicine I have to send. Yeah. Recent advances written so asked, okay, टिश्यू इंजीनियरिंग अभी तक इतना आया नहीं है. There are some trials going on use of stem cells. It's still in trial phase. It's not coming to the market as of now. Okay, so it's not really something that is done in any American or European hospital apart from trial. Okay, so stem cells only work in. And if you say tissue engineering, there are a lot of new meshes that they're trying to make, which are biological meshes, because mesh का बड़ा problem हो गया है. तो biological, again, but all in still in trial phase. They have not, none of them have come into the market. Okay. Now, there should be a very low threshold for performing urodynamics. No sling has more than 90% success rate. So I'm going to teach now urodynamics after this, right? No sling has more than 90% success rate. So it's very important to, during the consent process, tell them that You may still fail, right? And that you should have, there are fallback options, and there's more evidence required for laser therapy and radiotherapy, right? So these are all the surgeries of SUI. Okay. Any question of SUI surgeries? I will show you the surgeries afterwards. Today I can't show you because my internet is very slow. I'm going to take more lectures now. I'll show you then. You understood all the evidence behind all the surgeries well? And those who didn't attend the lecture first time, you go through the first lecture, and then the second lecture will make more sense. Okay? Now, shall I go on to urodynamics?
Yes.
Then I'll take overactive bladder next time, and then prolapse. Okay? One second. I'll just stop sharing my screen. And I'm just getting my urodynamic lecture up. One second. One second. Urodynamics, because if you cannot, if you do SUI surgery, you should know how to do urodynamics. You should be able to read a urodynamics report, and one of the most interesting tests possible. One of the problems with urodynamics is the garbage in, garbage out. If you do the test badly, it's going to give you bad results. Correct? So the worst enemy of urodynamics is a badly done test. Correct? So I'll tell you what is urodynamics. Okay, now very simply, urodynamics is a replication of what the bladder does in a lab situation. Correct? What does the bladder do? It fills, it stores, and empties. Correct? Basically, in the lab, I am doing the same thing and testing how the bladder works when it's doing these three functions. According to ICS, International Continence Society, it's basically the study of function and dysfunction of the lower urinary tract by any appropriate method. Understood? So basically, urodynamics is a laboratory mimicking of normal bladder physiology of filling up, storing, and emptying. Correct? Now, when I say multi-channel or complex or subtracted cystometry, what does it mean? It means that I actually make the woman take in, like I fill the bladder, make her store the urine in the bladder or fluid in the bladder and empty the bladder. But while I'm doing that, I am putting in certain pressure transducers into the bladder, into the abdomen, anal canal, and I'm measuring pressures. What am I measuring? I'm measuring intravesical pressure and I'm measuring intra-abdominal pressure, right? So when I'm doing complex or multi-channel or subtracted cystometry, and I'm going to come to what subtracted cystometry actually means later on. But the term complex or multi-channel or subtracted cystometry means testing, filling, storage and voiding of the bladder after you put in catheters with pressure transducers and recording intravesical intra-abdominal pressure. Are you okay with it? Now in this lecture now, don't let me go ahead till you've understood everything. Because if you've not understood every slide, you will not understand the next one. Okay? So if you have a problem, Meenal, I can't see the chat. So, you just stop me, okay? And one second.
Yes, ma'am, I'll send you.
Is there any question now? Mujhe bol do, because I can't see the chat when I've got when I'm in 1 second. Huh? I can't see the chat when I'm sharing screen. Okay. Now, when will I do complex urodynamics, right? I will do complex urodynamics whenever your simple studies are inconclusive, correct? Right? You've done a simple single channel study and it's inconclusive, then you would do a complex urodynamics. There's complicated history. When there's recurrent incontinence after previous surgery for incontinence, when you have continuous leakage, when you've got mixed incontinence, when you have got voiding dysfunction, when for any reason you have got reduced bladder capacity, or there's some neurological problem, or is refractory urinary incontinence, or severe SUI. Now, these are the indications for urodynamics, right? Now, they will ask you whether you'll do urodynamics after in SUI patients, right? When a patient with SUI comes to me, I will first do biofeedback physiotherapy. I don't need urodynamics before biofeedback physiotherapy. But before sling surgery, I tend to do urodynamics. A lot of papers say you don't need to do urodynamics before sling surgery. But that is the case only for pure genuine SUI where nothing else is a problem. Very few patients have pure genuine SUI with no other issue, like no voiding dysfunction, no infection, no prolapse. If I get this classical patient where post-void residual is normal, her uroflowmetry is normal, her flow rate in uroflowmetry is normal, there's no infection, there is no prolapse, only then they say you can go ahead and do sling surgery without urodynamics. Okay? But remember one thing, even the paper which said that they had to screen so many patients to just get these few patients. Only 13% of all the patients they screened had only pure genuine SUI. Most patients tend to have something or the other that you need urodynamics to clarify. Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am. What is single channel?
Okay, single channel. I'll come to that. Let me finish this point and then I'll come to single channel. Okay. In urgency incontinence, in overactive bladder, and I'm going to teach overactive bladder treatment afterwards. I'll finish urodynamics and then teach you that. In overactive bladder, when I'm doing conservative management, I don't need to do urodynamics. But if medication, physiotherapy have failed, before I go and do Botox or before I go and do higher level treatment, I would do urodynamics. Did you understand that? It's the evidence. Now, what is single channel simple studies? Basically, now some people tend to do only put only the catheter into the bladder and not put abdominal catheter and do a simple study, the simple cystometry. If it's inconclusive, you have to do complex. Complex would be I have got a transducer both in the bladder and the anal canal. I'm measuring both intravesical and intra-abdominal pressure. That's complex. Okay. Now, when I do urodynamics, I start off first with uroflowmetry. Do you understand that? Okay. Now, what is uroflowmetry? Uroflowmetry. So, first thing I will do when a woman comes in is that I won't put in the transducer. I will go in my center. The uroflowmetry is done in the bathroom. She sits in a commode. Uroflowmetry basically is that I'm doing a simple non-invasive test, meaning I'm not putting any catheter inside the patient. I'm just making her sit on the commode and void. But when she is voiding, there is a measurement of the volume, the flow rate, okay? Why? And that tells you is there any problem with the voiding of the patient. Why do I have to do simple uroflowmetry always in patients first? It's because when I put in a catheter, of course the voiding will not be normal. Imagine trying to pee with a catheter inside of you, right? In a canal in the urethra. Of course, your voiding will not be absolutely correct. That is why you start off the test by doing a simple non-invasive uroflowmetry. That's a screening test for voiding problems. It's a means of selecting patients who require more complex urodynamic studies, right? So you have two different types of uroflowmetry, right? One is basically when the patient is peeing into it, how do I measure volume and flow rate? Two different ways of doing it. Either the weighted way of doing it or a rotating disc. Weighted way matlab you pee into that, you pee into this like a jar and it's basically on a weighing scale. And it measures the change in weight as the flow rate they understand from changing weight over time. Okay. That's a weighted way of measuring, doing uroflowmetry. And you also have a rotating disc method of doing uroflowmetry where it rotates and that you don't need to know all the weights measuring it. But basically the circumferential force is translated into a flow rate. Okay. Now, see, this is how it is. If I'm doing a weighted technique, the patient will sit on a commode and the jar will be on the weighing scale. This is a specific weighing scale that comes for it. I tend to do uroflowmetry in the bathroom because I want it to be as close to normal as possible. If I make, the worst thing in India is most urodynamic labs are so terrible. It's done in this open room. Hajar people are walking through it. A board boy will be standing there. Nurses will be talking loudly amongst each other. And then बोलेगा बाद patient को pee करो, right? How can she pee normally? Can you pee in front of me right now? If I ask all of you to pee right now, will you be able to pee? Of course not. Correct? Somebody is watching you, somebody is shouting there, a man is standing in front of you. Of course, the test is going to go all wrong. So people like me who are very finicky about urodynamics, I have a Bluetooth enabled uroflowmetry where the patient pees in the bathroom. The commode is in the bathroom. The door is closed. It's like voiding like usual. And I'm measuring it outside. Understood? Now, what do I get? I get you get a x-axis and a y-axis, right? X-axis is flow time and y-axis is a flow rate, right? ml per second. Okay. Normally, when a woman has good voiding, she will have a quick uptake and then a little prolonged, downturn. This is how it goes. Nice going up and then a little prolonged coming down, right? Normally, so we measure what do we measure? We measure average flow rate and maximal flow rate. Understood? The maximal flow rate would be, now this is when the flow is going like this. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is like flow. This is the point of maximum flow, like this point. So this is a flow rate. So this is a Qmax. Maximum flow rate would be here. It's called Qmax. Normally in females under 50 years of age, Qmax will be more than 25 milliliters per second. In women who are over 50 years of age, Qmax will be more than 18 ml per second. Right? So there will be a little lower flow rate. If a woman has less than 15 ml per second, I will start looking for voiding dysfunction. But still, a very normal women also will have flow rate less than 15 ml per second. 15 is a cutoff. Right? So this is how it looks. It's a kind of non-instrumental. It's called non-instrumental flowmetry, right? I screamed so much that my throat starts aching. Sorry. Yeah. So basically, you have a non-instrumented flowmetry looking like this. Why am I calling it non-instrumented flowmetry? Because I have not put transfusion in the bladder and the anal canal. And I'm getting a graph like this. The top part of the graph is a flow rate ka graph. And the lower part is the volume. You see that? This is like when she starts peeing, see how it is. When she starts peeing, there's a nice quick upturn. Right? And then a slower downturn. Right? And this is artifacts because sometimes she moves, right, while peeing. And this is the lower one is a volume. It rose up and then when she finished peeing, it remained that much, correct? Normally, to be able to, you have to pee at least 150 ml to actually give a report. If a woman pees less than 150 ml, the report is wrong. Okay? You can't apply a uroflowmetry when the volume voided is less than 150 ml. Let me just drink water. Clinical examples, right? So this is normal. Look at the Qmax here. Maximum flow rate. Qmax is 33.8. This is great. Average is around 18.6. This is great. And the bell-shaped curve is good. Look at this. When there is any reason, when then you have a bladder outflow obstruction, patient has a sling there, or there's another, or she's not relaxing the pelvic floor while voiding, you can have a pattern like this. You see this plateau pattern, constrictive flow rate. And some people will have pelvic floor dyssynergia, right? So this, you see this is the top flow. See, now top one should be like this, right? Look at this. It should be like this. But look at this. You see this? Thoda pee kar rahi hai wo. You see this? So little. It's a interrupted staccato flow. interrupted, right? It's interrupted flow, correct? Now the interrupted flow is happening because now she's not relaxing the pelvic floor. You see this below this point is EMG. You see the red thing here? That's EMG. Now, lot of women, almost it's a very significant proportion of women who have dysfunctional voiding because they are not relaxing their pelvic floor while peeing. Remember, I told you last time, women who have been delivered and you've given them episiotomy, it's painful there, correct? It's very painful. So when they go to pee, first step in peeing is pelvic floor relaxation. But if you've operated there or she's got episiotomy there, it's too painful. So she won't relax. She squeezes up. So when she squeezes up, the urethra won't open up and she will have, what will she have? She will have interrupted flow like this. So somebody asked me dyssynergia. This is pelvic floor dyssynergia. Do you see this? When I gave a instruction to, now this is surface EMG. What I'm doing here in surface EMG is I've got EMG leads. Like how you have ECG leads, I've got EMG leads that I've applied to either side of the anal canal, between the anal canal and the vagina on either side of the midline. Normally, when a woman pees, this EMG should become smaller. It should quieten. But look at what is happening in her. Instead of quieting, she has got this acceleration, decelerations. So instead of relaxing the pelvic floor, she's squeezing up. You see this? Like when she relaxed, the थोड़ा voiding हो गया इधर. But again वो contract करने लगी तो voiding बंद हो गया. You saw that? See here. When she relaxed here, she peed a bit. And again उसका ये यहाँ contract करा तो pee बंद हो गया. Correct? So these are women with pelvic floor dyssynergia. And a lot of patients of prolapse also have this. They will have pelvic floor dyssynergia. Why? Because they develop this very bad habit of pushing to pee. Because when there's a prolapse, they have to push to pee. And when they push to pee, the muscles below will squeeze up. Correct? People who have pain, they will do this. Pelvic floor dyssynergia. Very common and missed by all gynacs. Okay? Now, this kind of thing where you're up and down, this is an artifact. This doesn't mean a thing. So you're moving back and forth. Okay? Any question on Eurochrometry?
Abdominal meaning transanal. Means how we measure the abdominal pressure by transabdominal.
Yeah, abdominal meaning yes, transanal or transvaginal. You can also put in transvaginal. However, I would not put in transvaginal when you have prolapse. I tend to put in anally in every patient. I'm used to it. But you can put in the vagina, except in patient with prolapse. Okay.
Ma'am, what all things will come in pelvic floor hypertonic disorder? It's the only question.
Pelvic floor hypertonic disorder is exactly what I showed you right now. A pelvic floor dyssynergia patient will not relax the pelvic floor in voiding. So they will have interrupted flow. Many of these patients can also have, and this is a very stupid question. You know, the questions are coined by people who are not from the field. That's like a pelvic floor like, you know, you want to call it a pelvic floor hypertonic disorder. These are all functional conditions. These are patients, some people will have pain hota hai, they will be aisa tight pakad ke baithe. Like when you put in the finger in the vagina, your levitt and I must like man like tight. Okay, some people are always like that, and some people when they are peeing they tend to squeeze up. There's two difference. When you examine them normally, they're all relaxed. But bathroom mein gaya to hi kuch to mental tension hoke they squeeze up. Many times what happens is the pelvis responds to tension by squeezing up, and then उनको इतना anxiety होता है कि peeing के टाइम squeeze up करते हैं. Normally नहीं करते. But there are many other patients who will have, say for example, sexual dysfunction because of vaginismus. These are patients who are sitting tight, say tight हो गया है, right?
Interrupted flow seen mostly after delivery. Is the interrupted?
Not necessary. Not necessary. Interrupted flow can happen in multiple reasons, but sometimes delivery के बाद होता है कि you know you see ना patients who come with voiding dysfunction after delivery, जो episiotomy आपने किया है और एपिसोड नहीं करा तो पेनफुल होता है, एंड वी डोंट डू नाइस पेन रिलीफ, वी डोंट इवन चेक उन लोगों का बॉडी कितना अच्छा है कि नहीं. तो कैसा होता है, when they go to pee, when you are in pain, what happens, the muscle only go and squeeze up, तो उनका फ्लो इंटरप्ट होता है बिकॉज pelvic मसल रिलैक्स नहीं करता. फर्स्ट स्टेप ऑफ peeing is pelvic floor relaxation. Okay, any other question?
Then ma'am, you can go.
Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this helping you? This
Yes.
is important for your exam, no?
Yes, yes.
One second. Okay, now let's go to multi-channel cystometry, complex cystometry or subtracted cystometry, right? Okay, now let's go one by one, right? I will first place in a catheter. So you look at this, I have got a catheter placed in the bladder. Can you see that the pink one is a catheter placed in the bladder? I'm measuring the pressures using centimeter of water measurement. Like, yeah, so basically it's called PVES. So I will have a transducer in the bladder and it is measuring bladder pressure. Now you see here two balloons. Now this is the difference between urologist and urogynecologist. Unfortunately in the country, and this is very bad, very few, it's a urologist who do urodynamics. But I do hardcore urodynamics and I do the urogynecology way. We urogynes, like when I train in the US, we tend to measure both bladder pressure and urethral pressure. So if you see the PVES and PURA, if you see urodynamics done by urologist, they will have only PVES. They don't believe in measuring the urethral pressure. If you see urodynamics done by me, you will see bladder pressure and you will see urethral pressures. Okay, understood? So in your exam, you can write that, like, some often urethral pressure also measured. And there are certain, because I do high-end urogynecology, I need to understand urethral pressure, because if I want to understand whether the patient has ISD, I want to know if the urethral pressure are good enough. If I'm seeing a patient of dysfunctional voiding, I want to know if the woman is relaxing her urethra while peeing. I can know that only if I've got urethral pressures. But if you listen to urologists, they don't do PURA. And almost all urogyne in the country, except me, have learned urodynamics from urologists. So all other urogynecologists also don't do URA. But if you're going to go to the US, they would do URA. So it's okay. Right now, you don't have to think about it. I'm just telling you from the perspective of understanding that you can do PVS and you can do PURA. Understood? Okay? So when you're doing PVS and PURA, it's the same catheter. Basically, there are two balloons. One balloon at the tip and another balloon a little below it. Because when you keep it in place properly, the proximal balloon will be in the bladder and the distal balloon will be in the urethra. Now, one very important thing is this. Most people in the country tend to use water perfused transducers. How do the transducers measure pressure? Correct? There are two ways of doing it. There are water perfused and air charged. Okay? I don't want to go into specifics of it, but just remember this, that most urologists and everybody in the country uses water perfused. But US uses air charge and I use air charge because you cannot measure urethral pressure without air charged. Air charged are easier to use. They're more expensive, but. So I use air charged transducers and I use urethral pressures. You always use water perfused transducers and do not measure urethral pressures. Are you okay? Basically, when I say water perfused or air charged, it's a way of measuring the pressure in the bladder and the inner canal. Understood? Any question? Right. Then I have another transducer in the abdomen. Right now, here it's clearly shown that the transducer is placed in the vagina. As I told you, you can place a transducer in the vagina. If you to measure abdominal pressure, I can place the transducer in the vagina. But in patient with prolapse, never do that. People like me put everything in the rectum. So if you see this one, if you see this, here you see it's in the vagina, but if you see the other diagram, it's in the rectum, correct? You put it around 10 centimeters into the rectum, okay? And you're measuring the abdominal pressure. Basically, when you put in the rectum or the vagina, you're measuring abdominal pressure. Now, I will also put EMG leads. You saw that where it's put, you can see the diagram here. Perianally, I'm putting in EMG leads superficially around the anus. It's basically EMG pads. So I've got PVES, I've got PURA if you're doing it like me. I've got PABD, and I've got surface EMG. Are you all with me till now? You need to stop me and ask questions, because if you don't understand this, you will not understand the rest of the lecture. You all understood this? I've got transfer in the vagina, I've got transfer in the abdomen, anal canal or vagina. Sorry, I've got transfer in the bladder, and I've got transfer in the vagina or the anal canal. If you have prolapse, don't put in the vagina. You can measure, if I'm using bladder transducer, I can maybe only measure bladder pressure, but I can also use double channel one, and I can measure both bladder and urethral pressures, right? PV is PABD, exactly. PV is PABD, but I will not do PV for vaginal if the woman has prolapse. I tend to put it in the anal canal, but you can put it in the vagina. Okay, understood? But not in prolapse. Any other question?
No, ma'am.
There are two different types of transducers, air charged and water perfused. The whole country uses water perfused. I tend to use air charged. Why? Because I do a lot of urethral pressures. I get complex patients. I want to be able to see urethral pressures. I want to be able to see whether urethra is relaxing while peeing. I want to know if urethral pressures are good enough for diagnosing ISD. That's why I like air charged. I cannot measure urethral pressures with the water perfused ones. Okay? One second. Now, yes. Now, look at the color scheme, okay? I put in a, now this is very important to understand, okay? I put in a PVES, so I'm going to get a PVES. You see this? This is PVES. In the graph, I'm going to get a PVES. I put in the vagina and I'm getting a PABD. Here, this is PABD, the blue is PABD. And I've got PURA also, right? PURA, PVES, PABD. Correct? Did you get it? I measured P. So in the graph, I'm going to get whatever I'm measuring. I measured PURA, so I'm going to get a graph for PURA. I measured PVES, so I'm going to get a graph for PVES. I measured PABD, so I'm going to get a graph for PABD. I'm measuring EMG, so I'm going to get a red EMG, right? And when I'm filling the bladder, I'm going to show how much volume I have infused. Lastly, I'm going to get PDET. Now, PDET is a green thing is actually PDET. That is detrusor pressure. That is detrusor muscle pressure, the bladder muscle pressure. Now, I actually do not directly put a transducer measure there. PDET is given to me by the machine. As it's measuring, as the test is going on, I'm filling the bladder, it's measuring both PVES and PABD. And it's constantly subtracting PABD from PVES and giving me PDET. Basically, PDET is, one second, PDET is a calculated value. PDET is a subtracted measurement. PDET is PVES minus PABD. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. No questions.
PVES minus PABD is PDET. What is PDET? Detrusor muscle. So basically, if you see the graph, I've got a transfer in the bladder, it's measuring the bladder pressure. It's always higher than the abdominal pressure. Here is abdominal pressure. So PDET is this muscle pressure, and it's PVES minus PABD. Understood? If I subtract PABD from the PVES, I will get the bladder muscle pressure, the beach mein hai. Okay? That's why it's also called as subtracted cystometry. See this. PDET is PVES minus PABD. Okay, now how do I do the test? Right? How I will tell you how I do urodynamics, right? You can go on for that. First, I will do uroflowmetry. So I will ask the patient to come. 1 second. I will ask the patient to come full bladder, comfortably full bladder. Not one very important thing. Never ask the patient to come extreme full bladder. आप लोग है ना अल्ट्रासाउंड कराते हो ना पेट का पोस्ट वाइड रेसिडुअल करने के लिए अल्ट्रासाउंड करते हो ना never ask the patient to be extreme full bladder then P and do PVR. It will come all wrong. Extreme full bladder में bladder काम नहीं करता अच्छे से. They should be comfortably full bladder. If they're extreme full bladder, the bladder will not evacuate properly, even for you and me. And our postpart decision will become abnormally wrong. Right? So I will ask the patient to come comfortably full bladder and I will do uroflowmetry. Once I've done uroflowmetry, I will get them on my chair. I have a self-designed urodynamics chair. I do not do it like urologists. They have a what urologists have done is they have transplanted male things to females. I have my own urodynamics chair which I've designed. It's like a sitting position and not lithotomy. Basically, like they're sitting literally, and then their chair is raised up to my eye level, so I can see the urethra. I'm sitting in front of the patient, and I can see the urethra in like in front of me, like at the eye level it is. Patient is sitting like this, and I've raised the patient up. Understood? Okay. So then I will, after I've done uroflowmetry, then I will do the post-viral residual, remove all the remaining urine from the bladder, and then I will put in the transducers. Okay. I will fix in place the abdominal transducer, but I will not fix in place the bladder transducer. I will first do urethral pressure profile before fixing it in place. Okay. Now, and I will put surface EMT. Then I will do something called as urethral pressure profile. What is urethral pressure profile? Urethral pressure profile is, can you see this diagram here? Can you see the diagram on the right side?
Yes,
Yeah. So basically, see, imagine that I put the, see, 1 second. Huh. You seeing this transducer inside? See you this the bladder. So you see this bladder transducer? What will happen is I will put it very inside so that both these balloons are in the bladder. So both the urethral transducer and the bladder transducer are measuring bladder pressure because both are inside. Then what I will do is I will slowly, I have a puller, a mechanical puller that will slowly pull this out. When slowly pulling it out at 1 centimeter per minute, what will happen is a time will come when the urethral transducer will enter the urethra. Understandable? I put the whole thing inside and I'm slowly pulling it out. When I'm slowly pulling it out, the urethral transducer will come into the urethra. When the urethral transducer comes into the urethra, because urethra is a narrower space than the bladder, the pressure will start rising. See this. See this. Here, if you see, till this point, so this is the, till this point, both are measuring bladder pressure. But the minute it enters the urethra, the urethral transducer, the pressure will start rising. Why? Because the urethra is a narrow tube and the bladder is a big cavity. It will rise up and then it will come down. This is a urethral pressure. Urethral pressure is how much more than the bladder pressure does it rise. And maximal urethral closure pressure is the maximal rise of the urethral pressure over the bladder pressure. Did you all understand?
yes,
MUCP is maximal urethral closure pressure. In other words, it is how much more than the bladder pressure does the urethral pressure rise. The maximum pressure that it rises is the maximal urethral closure pressure. Why is it important for me? In patients with ISD, MUCP is always less than 20 centimeter of water. In patient with ISD, because the sphincter is not working, urethra pressure will not rise that much. It will rise less than 20 centimeter when compared to the bladder pressures. That's why I need to do MUCP in ISD patient to pick up ISD. If MUCP is less than 20 centimeter water, I suspect ISD. Any question on urethral pressure profile?
Yes, ma'am. Some question from the chat box.
Yes. Why will urethral pressure will fall after initial rise in the urethra? That's always normal like that. When you pull up, because in the tube, at the point of the sphincter, the pressure is higher. Okay, so when it goes through the sphincter area, the pressure will rise more and start dropping then. What is normal MUCP? Is generally, there's no range for it, but it will be around 90, 60 to 90 to 100 hota hai. But less than 20 hota hai, no ISD.
Any inadvertent cough or sneeze won't cause any study discrepancy and wrong value.
But if I have inadvertent squeeze, I will have obviously repeat it again. I always do my urodynamics. I don't leave it to technicians. I do it myself because urodynamics is a live study. What you see is what you get. If somebody else is doing it, they'll do it stupidly. Right? If you're doing it, you're seeing live what is happening in the patient while you're doing it, right? MUCP is relation to intravesical pressure. Yes. How much more than the intravesical pressure does the urethral pressure rise? That's MUCP, maximal urethral closure pressure. Understood?
Yes.
Urethral pressure profile is basically, and urethral pressure profile can only be done by those people who measure urethral pressures. If you're not measuring urethral pressure, you cannot do urethral pressure profile. That means you always don't measure urethral pressure. They don't do MUCP. Okay. Does the probe sense change in pressure while moving or absolute pressure? Basically, it depends upon the kind of transducer you're using. If it's a water perfused one, but generally change in pressure. Yes, because in the end of the graph, the urethral pressure falls below the bladder because urethral pressure came out of the urethra. That's why. When you pull it out, a point will come and the transducer will come out of the urethra. And that's why the pressure is falling so low. Understood? Understood properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, after I have done urethrometry, uh, urethral pressure profile. Then what I will do is, I will fix the urethral transducer in place in such a way that the bladder transducer is in the bladder and the urethral one is the urethra. So everything is measuring correctly. One of the very important things to know is, have you placed it correctly? You have to do the rest of the procedure in such a way that the tip wala jo transducer hai, wo bladder ke andar hai. And the distal wala urethra mein hai. And the abdomen one is in the abdomen. I mean, in the anal canal of the vagina, measuring what's supposed to measure. Then I will do something called as cystometry. What is cystometry? Cystometry is basically replicating bladder function. I will put in fluid inside the transducer that goes into the bladder also has a fluid channel through which I can put in fluid. Okay. I will put in fluid at 50 ml per minute. Okay. And when I'm putting in fluid, it's 60 ml per minute here, but normally we'll put it at 50 ml per minute. So you will start putting in fluid. So this is empty bladder because you've emptied the bladder and start putting in fluid. And you will ask the woman to understand, to tell you sensation. Why? Because you want to understand her systomatic capacity, her felt functional capacity. And you want to know at what point she has first sensation, meaning first time she feels something is entering into the bladder. Okay, the first, like if the first time she feels something cold is going to the bladder, that's first sensation. So I'll tell her, okay, tell me first sensation. And I explain like first time you feel feel something cold is going inside of you. Then I'll tell her to tell me first desire. What is first desire? Not that you want to go, but first time you felt that if I went, I could pee a little. That's first desire. Okay. Then I will have normal desire. What is normal desire? Normal desire is if I'm just sitting and doing nothing, I will go. But if I'm sitting in front of you and teaching, I can wait for 5 minutes. Right? Like even if I'm like, so I can control for 5 minutes. But normally if I'm not doing anything, I will go. Normally कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, बाहर बैठे हैं. I'm waiting for your guys to come. I have time. I will go. So normal desire at that point where normally I would go. But if I am cooking something, gas पे कुछ है या शाहरुख खान, I'm watching TV, my favorite movie, and Shah Rukh Khan is dying, I can wait for 5 minutes. Correct? That's normal desire. Strong desire is इतना strong है कि even if I'm teaching you, I'll tell you, sorry, I have to go. That's strong desire. I can't wait for 5 minutes also. Like if I'm cooking something, I'll put off the gas and go. If I'm watching TV and I'm watching a movie and Shah Rukh Khan, my favorite actor, but he's dying, but I still go. I couldn't care less because I've got strong desire. That's strong desire. And urgency is, it's really, really bad. Urgency is like, आप McDonald's में उतरे हो तो मेल बाथरूम चले जाओगे. इतना ज़्यादा हो रहा है. That's urgency. So I will ask her to go through first sensation, first desire, normal desire, strong desire, and urgency. And at urgency point, I will say, what is the maximum capacity of the woman? Normal maximum capacity of woman is around 300, 500 ml. And normally, I will stop filling at 600 ml. I will not fill beyond 600 ml. Correct? Okay, now, if a woman has early first sensation, if she's got first sensation below 100 ml, she's more likely to have sensory overactive bladder, right? She's the kind of person who goes repeatedly to the bathroom. I don't know, some people have urgency frequency, repeated need to go to the bathroom. Most people will have first sensation early. If a woman has bladder pain syndrome, her bladder wall is inflamed, then also her sensation will be very early. Her capacity will be very less. Some patients who have got cancer and they've undergone radiation, they will have fibrotic bladder, so the capacity will be low. Understand? Patient with overactive bladder who are leaking urine because of the fact that they have got urgency incontinence, those will have low bladder capacity, and they will have early first sensation, first desire, normal desire, strong desire, everything will come early. Understood? In patient with SUI, generally this all tends to remain normal. Now, when I am filling the bladder till 600 ml maximum, I have to keep watching PVES and PDET. PVES and PDET should never rise. Bladder should be able to expand without pressure rising. So bladder is always compliant. Understood? What is compliance? Compliance is change in volume over change in pressure. So if you see a normal woman, her PVES will be a straight line, even though it's 500 ml, 600 ml, 700 ml, her PDET will be a straight line. So volume should be able to change without change in pressure. Now, which patients will have non-compliant bladder? I told you last time, right, कि तुमने C-section किया या तुमने delivery किया, उसके बाद episiotomy में pain हुआ, and then she stopped voiding properly because pelvic dyssynergia हो गया, and then she went home because आपने पूछा नहीं, घर में गई वो पी नहीं कर रही है properly, correct? She's not peeing properly at all. So what is happening? Her bladder is filling up, filling up, filling up. Correct? A point will come where the bladder muscle will get damaged. When the bladder muscle gets damaged, it becomes non-compliant. It is very important for you all to remember this. Every time you do delivery, every time you do normal delivery, next day, ideally, you should be doing bladder trial. You should ideally be measuring PVR, post-void residual. Do not assume patient avoiding properly. Ask them for history of hesitancy, ask them the history of interpret flow. People who didn't attend lecture last time, you can go and see the lecture and you'll understand what hesitancy means. Okay. Sorry, yes, something came.
Please explain compliance.
Okay. Now, a non-compliant bladder is very, very bad. It's terrible. When your bladder is non-compliant, then the bladder pressure increases when they are filling. And when the bladder pressure increases when they are filling, it can cause back pressure changes and the kidney can get damaged. I have seen prolapse patients who ended up with non-compliant bladder. Prolapse patients who are not voiding properly, people have not picked it up, so bladder muscles got damaged, and then that lead to non-compliant bladder and back pressure changes. So it's extremely important that urogyne prolapse should be done by urogynecologists, because all of these things are what we see, right? And you should know all of these aspects before you do prolapse surgeries, right? Because all of these things can be happening in your patient along with just the procedure happening, right? And after delivery, please always ask patients if they are voiding properly, right? Now, when I am filling up the two, three things will happen, right? When I am, see now you see this, 1 second now. Next time now, I'm so sorry. I have a practice in Delhi and I have a practice in Mumbai, right? And my own urodynamics machine is right now in Delhi because lockdown. I normally go to Delhi every alternate week because my first fellow is managing my center there, and my own urodynamics machine is there. So normally I kind of group my patients and I get my machine down. After June, na, when my I can get my machine down, I will show you some graphs. You'll understand a lot of things. Today I can't show you those graphs only because I don't have the machine here with me. Because I have the laptop of the urodynamics machine, na, you'll really understand, and I can show you different scenarios, and it'll be very easy for you to understand. Okay, now when I'm doing cystometry, I've started with empty bladder and I'm slowly filling up the bladder. Correct? What will I do? I will ask for first sensation, first desire, normal desire, strong desire, urgency. I will see if the bladder is compliant. Next, what will I do? At every 50 ml, I'm going to ask the patient to cough. Why? Because I want to see SUI hai ki nahi. And because my table is such that the patient is raised up and her urethra is actually the level of my eyes, when she coughs, I'll actually see if she's leaking or not. Okay. If she leaks without the bladder contracting, right? So when I'm asking the cough, now see, now this is I'll show you. Okay. You see this here? You see this spike here?
Yes,
Now, this is a patient who I was asked to cough here. And if you see the PVES and the PABD, they are equivalent, literally equivalent, बराबर? So P dead इतना बढ़ता नहीं है. Okay, so normally in a patient of SUI, what will happen is when you ask the patient to cough, the PVES and the PAB will generally rise equally, and the P dead will not rise. If you leak like that, there's no rise in P dead, but you're leaking, it's SUI because of cough. Because SUI में bladder नहीं contract करता. Understood this? In SUI patients, you'll have leaking on cough without rise in detrusor pressure. Understood? Now, in patients of detrusor overactivity, in patients who have detrusor overactivity, meaning overactive bladder, in overactive bladder, you have involuntary contraction of the detrusor muscle during filling. Correct? उनमें क्या होता है? When you're filling it up, suddenly you have a bladder muscle contraction, and you will see the PVES rising, and you will see the P rate rising, and they will have leaking. That is detrusor overactivity. You do understand that? The term detrusor overactivity is a urodynamic term because you see detrusor overactivity only on urodynamics. Normally, आप जब भी बोलते हैं ना कि हमको I have so much urgency that I leak on the way to the bathroom, that's overactive bladder. You don't use the term detrusor overactivity there. You say detrusor overactivity because in urodynamics, because आपको urodynamics में actually detrusor muscle की contraction दिखती है. Correct? So any leaking that happens with detrusor muscle contraction is detrusor overactivity, and you can see it on urodynamics. Okay, now I have told you certain patients can have cough induced detrusor overactivity. I told you last time when I took the lecture that some patient will come and tell you ये leak cough में होता है, लेकिन actually वो SUI नहीं है, वो cough ना bladder muscle trigger कर रहा है. That also you can see in urodynamics. If you ask the patient to cough and you can actually see a detrusor contraction triggered, that is a cough induced detrusor overactivity. Normally, when you cough and you have SUI, the detrusor muscle will only, the rise in the detrusor pressure will be synonymous with that of the PVES and PAB, but it won't trigger off a bladder contraction. Patients whom cough is triggering a bladder contraction and they're leaking, they have cough-induced detrusor overactivity. So they're not actually SUI patients, they're actually overactive bladder patients. Did you all understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions till now? I'm sorry to stop you.
Could you please repeat the P date? Why does it rise?
Yes. It is not rise in interpretation. In patient with SUI, the leaking is not because of bladder contraction. In patient with SUI, the leaking is because when you cough and the bladder is like being pushed, urine starts coming out, the pelvic muscle not supporting the urethra. So when you see patients, when you ask the patient to cough and she leaks, but the bladder muscle is not contracting over and above the abdominal pressure, then period will not rise. Period will not rise because your PVES is not, when you cough, your PVES also will rise, your PAB will also rise, but an equal rise of pressure. That's why period won't rise. Understood? Period is PVES minus PAB. Period will rise only if the bladder muscle is contracting. In SUI, bladder muscle not contracting. So both PVES and PAB will rise equally, and that is why period will not rise in SUI patients. However, in overactive bladder patients, period will rise because bladder muscle is contracting. Did you understand? Over and above that of the abdomen. That is why.
Yes.
Understood?
Yes.
Please explain compliance. Compliance means that when I'm filling the bladder, the volume expands, but the bladder pressure does not increase. PVES and PDED will be a straight line. You should be able to expand your bladder without pressure increasing. Because if pressure in the bladder increases, it will cause back pressure in the kidney. All of us, right now, we're all holding urine inside. 2 घंटे से कोई बाथरूम नहीं गया है. 1-2 लोगों को देखा मैं जाते हुए. Right? लेकिन the bladder is filling up, but your volume is rising, but your pressure is not rising. So PVES and PVES and PDET will be a straight line. All of them will be straight. PVES, PAB, PDET will be straight. Understood? Compliance is change in volume over change in pressure. Did you understand, Seema Singh? Did you understand compliance? Yes. Okay, now, does DOI purely overactive bladder or no complaint of SUI at all? Yes. Detrusor overactivity is purely overactive bladder. There is no component of SUI. How can there be a component of SUI? Okay, ma'am. Yes, you're right, Shreya Pandey. If the period does not rise, it's only SUI. So PVES and PUR rise, increase in pressure. No. When you and I cough, anybody coughs, PVES will rise, PAB will rise, but they won't leak. In SUI, they will leak also. Did you understand, Dr. Shivangi Singh?
Yes.
You and I cough right now, I go, pressure बढ़ने वाला है ना, मेरे abdomen का pressure बढ़ने वाला है, मेरा bladder का pressure बढ़ने वाला है, but I'm not leaked in front of you. Okay? Okay, very good question, Aditi Khare. Does detrusor overactivity always followed by incontinence? No. You can have detrusor overactivity without incontinence, but they will have the urgency sensation. What will happen in mixed incontinence? You will see both. You will see that they have detrusor overactivity and you also see SUI. Sometimes, and you can even see what is more than the other. Is it easy to understand? अभी तो जो बताया समझा है क्या आप लोगों को? Did you all understand this? It's a difficult topic. It's very technical. It's the most beautiful test on earth. I can't begin tell you, after finishing MD Gynec, when I went to urogynecology, I was jealous of urology that I knew the bladder. I love the bladder. I love dysfunctional voiding. It is so beautiful, what happens when you're voiding. So it's very nice to see what happens in each patient. The beauty of urogynecology is every patient is different from the other. Every urogynecology is different from the other. थोड़ा तुमने यहाँ का थोड़ा वहाँ कर दिया कुछ दूसरा ही आ गया बहुत मजा आता है I really enjoy it. I'm very technical. So बहुत मजा आता है मुझे, So I mean, I can't understand how anybody can allow technicians to do urodynamics. I do it all myself. And my fellow in Delhi, my first fellow from AIMS, the urogynecology fellowship in AIMS, and then she joined me and I trained her up further. When she does it herself, I've trained her up to do that. It's great fun. And to join my fellowship program, you will be doing 8 urodynamics a day. Hopefully, that's what we hope. Anyway.
Ma'am, you want to continue or should we do it tomorrow? Because
oh my God, it's already 11:15. I'm so sorry. Tell me I can finish it off.
yes, and we'll see the poll of the students.
Huh? What happened?
We'll see what students reply. If they
What do you want to finish or go on?
If they want, we can continue. If not, then we can.
How to join fellowship program? The fellowship program will be in a year's time. If coronavirus aa gaya, taklif de diya, I'll have an in Kama. I'm building this whole department and fellowship program. Hopefully, in a year's time, it will all start.
And everyone wants to continue.
Okay, I'll continue because tomorrow Kara was one person wants tomorrow. Oh God. But I think it's important to continue complete because वो एक इसमें होता है. Like this we are continuing the whole समझ के ले लो. Okay. Oh, my mother has come. Okay. I will change my room, but my mother has to sleep. I'll just go to the other room. One second. Huh?
Yes.
With some defect in urethra, if it is incontinence or else only period. No. Detrusor overactivity, see, when the bladder contracts, it pushes, there's nothing wrong with the urethra. Urethra is normal. But because the pressure is risen, because its bladder is contracting, it can push urine out of the urethra. Okay, so bladder contracting is pushing you. There's nothing wrong with. In mixed incontinence, they can have that. But there's no defect in urethra. In mixed incontinence, they have pelvic muscle support loss, right? Only period is involved in detrusor overactivity. Urethra is normal. Any other questions? नहीं, not necessary. DOI will have more than DO ऐसा नहीं है. Patient to patient different होता है. You can have patients with. See, it's not like that. Yeah, detrusor overactivity incontinence will have more period and detrusor overactivity alone. It can be like that. It can be a little flourish, but there's no kind of evidence backing that. You can have a little bit of detrusor overactivity and still leak because it can overpower the urethral pressures. Any other question?
We can go ahead.
Yeah. Now, I've already told you about mixed MUCP, maximal urethral closure pressure. Now I'm going to tell you something called a leak point pressure. What is leak point pressure? Now I told you that when I'm filling up the bladder in cystometry, at every 50 ml, I'm making the patient cough. But at 150 ml in capacity, I make the patient Valsalva. Understood? Push down, bear down. Take a deep breath and bear down by closing your mouth. And then I'll see the leak. Okay? So see here, if you see this, there's an upswing. I make them push. The bladder pressure rose, abdominal pressure rose. Correct? I will do it 3 times. Here I've shown it twice, but we'll do it 3 times. If she leaks 3 times, 3 times Valsalva kara, and I will see kabhi leak mara. Agar ek hi baar leak mara, so that P apt, the value of P apt that caused leaking is called leak point pressure. Understood? Leak point pressure is Valsalva leak point. You can do either Valsalva leak point pressure, you can do cough leak point pressure. But cough leak point pressure is not that good because you cannot grade it. Valsalva you can push a little less, you can push a little more. So Valsalva leak point pressure are better, right? So we all do Valsalva leak point pressure. The Valsalva leak point pressure is the lowest abdominal pressure at which the woman leaks in the absence of a detrusor contraction. Understood? It's a patient of pure SUI, so there's no detrusor contraction. And she leaks on Valsalva. If I've done 3 times, then the lowest abdominal pressure at which she leaks. Suppose I did 3 times, right? One time her P-app rose to 65. Second, and she leaked. Second time, her P-app rose to 75 and she still leaked. And third time, it rose to 40 and she leaked. So P-app, Valsalva leak point pressure will be 40. Why? Because she leaked at 40, the lowest point that she leaked. Another case, a patient, the pressure rose, P-app rose to 3 Valsalvas. First time the P-app rose to 60 and she leaked. Next time it rose to 30 and she did not leak. Third time it rose to 40 and she did not leak. So the Valsalva leak point pressure will be the first one because the point that she leaks, the lowest pressure which she leaks is important. So she leaks at 65. She didn't leak at 30 and 40. 65 will be the Valsalva leak point pressure. Understood? So the lowest P-app during Valsalva that provokes urine leakage in the absence of a detrusor contraction is called Valsalva leak point pressure. Did you all understand this?
P date should be more than MUCP for any detrusor activity to produce incontinence, right? That is it.
Yes, but if the P date rises, no. Detrusor contract करेगा तो rise करेगा ही ना. अगर bladder contract करेगा तो of course rise करेगा. Yes, of course.
No question.
Did you understand Valsalva leak point pressure? 3 times I make them do Valsalva. I will see when she leaks. The lowest abdominal pressure which she leaks is in the absence of detrusor contraction is called Valsalva leak point pressure.
Yes.
Understood?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. No question.
Yeah, now you see this graph. Yeah, ये MUCP का दिखा रहा है, right? MUCP कितना है उसका?
Ma'am, please share your screen, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I will show you my own graphs. My own graphs are much better than this lecture वाला graphs. जब मेरा वो when I have the laptop with me, I will show it to you all. Right? Right now, his laptop is in Delhi, and always is make my partner. Yeah, you see this? This is the P closure, meaning maximum closure pressure, right? So basically, how much more than this is MUCP? This is the maximum MUCP. Valsalva maximum closure pressure. This part is the UPP, urethral pressure profile. कितना rise मारा और जब maximum कितना rise मारा वो MUCP हो गया. And ये P closure देख रहा है ना, तो इसके लिए ये direct MUCP है. Okay, then आपने fill किया. आपने 150 में आपने क्या किया? 50 ml में कॉफ कराया, 100 में कॉफ कराया, 150 में Valsalva कराया 3 times, then 200 में कॉफ कराया, 250 में कॉफ कराया, 300 में कॉफ कराया, 350 में कॉफ कराया, and 400 में वो बोल रही है कि मैं एकदम फुल, मैं इतना फुल हूँ कि मेरे को बाथरूम, आई विल गो टू मेल बाथरूम. कैपेसिटी में भी आपने 3 बार Valsalva कराया, then you will make her pee, and this is different from your uroflowmetry while peeing. The uroflowmetry wala peeing was non-instrumental flowmetry. But at the end of complex urodynamics, you will do instrumental flowmetry. You will have the catheter in place and you will make her pee. And you will record bladder pressure कैसे change हो रहा है, abdominal pressure कितना change हो रहा है, pee rate कैसे change हो रहा है, and whether, and your EMG will be important here, whether she's relaxing the EMG or not. Understood?
Yes.
Right? So you will have peeing. Right? So what will I look at while peeing? आप ये complex thing मत देखो, इतना ही देखो. ये देखो. If you see this green thing, this is the volume voided. This is your bell-shaped curve. Correct? Yes. If you see the EMG, she relaxed the EMG. रिमेम्बर पहले वाला ईएमजी वो स्टैकेटो था, एक्सेलरेशन डिस्लेशन था, यहाँ रिलैक्स करा ईएमजी को, करेक्ट. पीरियड राइज किया, यू सी दिस पीरियड ग्रीन वाला, वो राइज करा ना पेशाब करने के टाइम. पेशाब मसल, हमारा मसल रिलैक्स होता है, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करता है ना ब्लड डेटूसर मसल, वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करा. उसने स्ट्रेन नहीं किया, एब्डोमिनल प्रेशर चेंज नहीं हुआ, वो स्ट्रेन नहीं कर रही थी. एंड पी वेज राइज कर रहा था, पी वेज राइज कर रहा था, ओवर पी एप करके पीरियड राइज हुआ, उसका पेशाब हो गया. डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड? दिस वुमन वॉइडेड बाय pelvic floor relaxation, urethral relaxation, यहाँ यूपी वाले नहीं है बट ऑब्वियसली हो रहा है, urethral relaxation and bladder contraction without abdominal straining. Did you understand? abdominal strain नहीं कर रही थी, वो पुश नहीं कर रही थी, इसका abdomen straight है. कितना लोग प्रोलैप्स होता है ना, वो लोग पुश करता है, तो ना abdomen go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay, so abdomen not going up and down. So this is a woman who peed by pelvic muscle relaxation, urethral relaxation, detrusor muscle contraction without abdominal straining. This is good voiding and bell-shaped curve. Right? So normally urethral and pelvic relaxation, detrusor contraction, continuous flow and bladder emptying. PBR normal होगा, and ये continuous flow है, interfere flow नहीं है. Okay? ये वाला I don't think you should go into great detail. I will just say, according to these guidelines, you do not need urodynamics only in the small group of women who have pure SUI. What is the meaning of pure SUI? You have no significant PVR, no prior low urinary tract surgeries, either pure SUR, stress predominant mixed incontinence, and no high grade prolapse. So remember, prolapse is complicated SUI. Understood? Only if you have pure SUI, you do not need urodynamics. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
But remember one thing, pure uncomplicated SUI बहुत कम लोगों में होता है, 5 to 36% of population. You might miss big things. Okay, now I'm going to show you a graph of why there are problems, you know. हम बोलता है कि प्योर एसयूआई में ही करना है, नहीं करना है. प्योर एसयूआई होगा तो you don't need urodynamics. However, one of the biggest problems is pure SUI occurs, pure uncomplicated SUI occurs in a very small proportion of the population. Even in the paper, with seminal paper which says that you don't need urodynamics, they had to scan only 17% of their patients whom they scanned had pure SUI. अगर तुम्हारे पास वो प्योर एसयूआई का जो कैटेगरी है उसी में नहीं लगता है, लेकिन प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है कि मोस्ट पेशेंट विल हैव कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज. ओके, नेक्स्ट, आई टोल्ड यू दिस दैट मेनी पेशेंट विल कम टू यू एंड से अरे खांसी में लीक हो रहा है, लेकिन वो एक्चुअली वो एसयूआई नहीं है, बिकॉज वो खांसी ब्लैडर कॉन्ट्रैक्शन ट्रिगर कर रहा है. आई एम गोइंग टू शो यू पेशेंट लाइक दैट. डोंट गेट स्कैर्ड ऑफ दिस. बट ये तुमने पी वेस्ट, यू सी दिस पी वेस्ट दिखता है, पी वेस्ट, यस और नो? हाँ, तो एवरी 50 ml हमने कॉफ कराया, करेक्ट? 50 ml में कॉफ कराया, पीरियड री राइज हुआ, लेकिन उतना ही राइज हुआ जब कॉफ कर रहे थे, बाद में कॉन्ट्रैक्शन नहीं हो रहा था. राइज करके वापस नीचे आया, राइज करके वापस, एवरी 50 ml में राइज करके कभी कॉफ कराया तो राइज हो रहा था, तो वापस नीचे आया. लुक एट दिस, एवरी कॉफ टिल हियर, दिस कॉफ ट्रिगर्ड अ ब्लैडर कॉन्ट्रैक्शन. यू सी दैट? कॉफ करा और ब्लैडर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होने लग गया. यू सी दिस? कॉफ करा, पीरियड राइज होने लगा, देखो. So this cough triggered a bladder contraction and then she leaked. So this is not a patient of SUI. This is a patient of cough-induced retrocessor overactivity. अभी ये यूरोडायनेमिक डायग्नोसिस है, ये हमको एग्जामिनेशन में नहीं समझेगा. अगर ऐसे पेशेंट में अगर हमने स्लिंग सर्जरी कर दिया, we have destroyed her. Remember that cough-induced retrocessor overactivity I can only see on urodynamics. I cannot see in clinical examination. Next, ISD is a urodynamic diagnosis. ISD का definition ही क्या है? MUCP less than 20 centimeter water and VLPP, that is Valsalva leak point pressure, less than 60 centimeter of water. And this is a urodynamic diagnosis. Unless I do urodynamics, I cannot pick a patient of ISD. Yes, empty supine stress test. And those people who missed the lecture last time won't understand what empty supine stress test is. Please go and listen to my lecture. Empty supine stress test positive hoga. It gives an indication कि ISD है. But the conclusive evidence is urodynamics. That is why you have to be very careful when you say you don't need urodynamics. Understand? I will not go into the other graph because तुमको complicate कर देगा. But तुमको थोड़ा थोड़ा स्टिप दिखाती हूँ मैं. Okay? Yeah. See this patient. You see this? You see this detrusor? ब्लैडर फिल कर रहा था, एब्डोमेन का प्रेशर सेम रहा, बट एक देखो पी बेस देखो ऊपर फिल करने पे ही उसका ब्लैडर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करने लग रहा था एंड पीरियड राइज हो रहा था. इट्स अ क्लासिकल केस ऑफ detrusor ओवर एक्टिविटी. Should never be like this. It should be straight line. Understood? यहाँ भी देखो कैसा हुआ, फिल कर रहा है यूरिन, सॉरी ब्लैडर, ये स्ट्रेट होना चाहिए लेकिन अपने आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होने लग गया. दिस इज अ लॉन्ग टोनिक detrusor ओवर एक्टिविटी. न्यूरोजेनिक ब्लैडर में ऐसा होता है. ये देखो यहाँ भी ब्लैडर स्ट्रेट नहीं, ब्लैडर कंप्लाइंट नहीं था, नहीं कंप्लाइंट नहीं, सॉरी ब्लैडर शांत नहीं था, अपने आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो रहा है. देखो ये कैसे वो लीक मारती है. ये वाला है, I told you ना pelvic muscle, this is voiding. When we asked to void here, वो pelvic muscle relax नहीं कर रही थी, वो contract कर रही. You see this? कैसे contract कर रही है pelvic muscle को? This is not normal. But pelvic muscle should relax while voiding. That is why she has got a flow, which is कहाँ गया flow का? हाँ flow. Look at the flow here. Intermittent flow है उसका. ऊपर गया कि छोड़ा नीचे आया, वापस ऊपर गया. This is not normal flow. ये Euroflowmetry study है. Okay, and you see that intermittent flow चल रहा है इसका. ये not normal. Okay, चलो. Understood?
Yes.
Any questions? I hope you understand urodynamics. Urodynamics is a little difficult to understand. Go back and again come back and ask me a question next time. You can take a 5 minutes. Okay, can you please repeat LPP, leak point pressure, right? So basically, at 150 ml of filling, leak point pressure is done during cystometry, not during micturition. When you're filling the bladder at 150 ml of filling and at capacity, I will make the patient Valsalva 3 times. And when you Valsalva 3 times, you will be seeing P-abd. Okay, the lowest P-abd at which he leaks without detrusor contraction is Valsalva leak point pressure. Understood? Of course, it's SUI patient, so there will be no detrusor contraction, right? I want to know how severe the SUI is. The more severe the SUI, the P-abd doesn't have to rise that much to cause leaking. Understood? Because अगर pelvic muscle support इतना weak है, तो P-abd को ज़्यादा raise नहीं करना पड़ता है to make it leak. So lowest P-abd at which he leaks is called Valsalva leak point pressure. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Aditi Khare, ask me LPP repeat करने को. And the Seema Singh ka treatment question is, what is treatment of cough-induced detrusor overactivity? Nice, you use the right term. The treatment is the treatment of overactive bladder, which I'm going to take next time. 10 minutes I'll finish that, and then I will go on to other parts of it, like prolapse. Okay? Any more questions? I hope this lecture helped you.
Yes, ma'am.
People who missed the first lecture, please go back and listen to that lecture and listen to the lecture again.
Ma'am, tomorrow's lecture is confirmed at 9 p.m.
Yes, can I confirm tomorrow morning? मेरा घर का इंटरनेट बहुत तकलीफ दे रहा है लॉकडाउन में, और कल वो साइक्लोन के ऊपर होगा ना, कैसा है साइक्लोन?
Sure, no problem.
But mostly yes, I'll take.
Okay, fine. I'll confirm tomorrow in the morning.
Yes.
you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Bye, all of you.
Yes, ma'am. Good night, ma'am.
I get so involved in my lecture now, my body starts aching after I finish the lecture.
It was a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you
Huh?
so much. It was a
Yeah,
wonderful
I get
session.
very involved. My throat starts aching. I mean, but I really love teaching. I mean, I'll teach you all everything. Don't worry. तुम्हारा exam going लोगों को जो भी urogynecology का है, I'll finish it all
Sure.
for you all. Okay. चलो.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am. Good night, ma'am.
Bye. 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 Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm reading the comments, so
Yes, yes.
you can all go. Don't worry. Some people writing comments. I'm just seeing what they're writing. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Yes. Bye, ma'am.
I'll leave.
Yes, sure.